Stanford basketball players got 9% better at free throws. Three-point shooting jumped 9.2%. Sprint speed improved. Reaction time was faster. Mood, fatigue, all better. They changed one thing: not training, not diet, not supplements, sleep. In 2011, a researcher named Sherry Ma at Stanford ran the study. She gave the men's basketball team one instruction: spend more time in bed. Aim for 10 hours. Here's what nobody in that study expected. Most of the athletes had been sleeping 8 hours. They thought they were fine. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you what they were actually missing, and the specific thing high performers do that you can copy tonight. You probably already know you should get 8 hours of sleep. You have heard that since you were a child, and you probably get close to it. 6.5, 7. Sometimes 8 when things are quiet. But here's what most people actually do with sleep. They treat it as the flexible one, the thing that shrinks when there is more to do. A deadline shows up. You stay up later. You set an earlier alarm. You plan to catch up over the weekend. You sleep in on Saturday and think, okay, I am balanced again. You feel mostly functional. Not great, but fine. Enough. And the story you were telling yourself is the same story almost everybody is telling themselves right now. I am a little tired, but I am managing. That feeling of managing, that is the problem. Not a sign that things are fine. Your brain has lost its ability to measure its own impairment. Not because you have adapted, not because you were tough, because of something specific that happens when the brain does not get enough sleep. Something you cannot feel, but researchers can measure it with a test. Watch what happens when researchers measure that managing feeling. A researcher named Hans van Dongen ran a study at the University of Pennsylvania in 2003. He split people into groups. One group slept 8 hours, one group slept 6, one group slept 4, and a separate group was kept awake entirely as a benchmark to measure against. Then, he tested their thinking, reaction time, and memory every single day for 2 weeks. By day 14, the people sleeping 6 hours a night were performing as badly as the people who had been kept awake for 24 hours straight. No sleep at all. And the strangest part is not the numbers. It is what the subjects said about themselves. When he asked the 6-hour group how sleepy they felt, they said, slightly above normal, mostly fine. They had no idea how impaired they were. They had lost the ability to feel it. Here is what almost nobody mentions about sleep. It is also the mechanism that resets your brain's reward system. Researchers at the National Institutes of Health found that sleep deprivation measurably reduced dopamine, D2 receptor availability in the brain's reward center, the network that makes anything feel worth doing. Poor sleep means that reset never happens. You wake up the next morning with your motivation system already drained. So, what were the Stanford athletes actually missing? Even sleeping 8 hours? The answer has nothing to do with hours. It has to do with cycles. Sleep is not a single flat state. It is a series of cycles, each one roughly 90 to 110 minutes long. A full 8-hour sleep gives you 4 to 5 of those cycles. In the early cycles, most of the time is spent in deep, slow-wave sleep. Think of this as the physical repair shift. Growth hormone gets released, immune function runs, your muscles recover. In the later cycles, the balance shifts. Those cycles are dominated by REM sleep. Think of REM as the cognitive repair shift, memory consolidation, emotional processing, skill learning. Now the piece most people miss. If you sleep 6 hours instead of 8, you're cutting off the back end of the night, which means the REM cycles take the deepest cut. The Stanford athletes were already sleeping 8 hours, but they were not always protecting those final hours. Sherry Ma's intervention extended the window, and the early morning REM that most of us cut off was finally protected. The skills they had practiced in training, they finally had the window to lock in. That is where the 9% came from. Listen closely, because what comes next is the part that should genuinely change how you think about your brain. and why most people never hear about it. There is a system in your brain that only runs when you sleep. It was discovered in 2013 by a neuroscientist named Maiken Nedergaard at the University of Rochester, and it changed what scientists think sleep is actually for. She found that the brain has its own waste clearance system, a network of channels that opens up during deep sleep and allows the fluids surrounding the brain to flush through, washing out toxic proteins that build up during the day while your brain is working. One of those waste products is called amyloid beta. It is one of the proteins found at higher levels in the brains of people who develop Alzheimer's disease. Your brain clears it out every night, during sleep, not rest, not lying down with your eyes closed. Deep sleep. Nedergaard called this system the glymphatic system. Think of it as the brain's overnight cleaning crew. During sleep, the brain cells actually shrink slightly, making the channels up to 60% more open, so the fluid can move through more efficiently. Now here's why this matters for you today. Not in 20 years, right now. The same short sleep window that cuts into your REM, that cuts your memory consolidation, your skill learning, also shortens the window for this nightly brain clean. The waste accumulates. The cognitive fog that settles in on chronic short sleep is not a metaphor. It is a maintenance problem. And remember what Van Dongen found. The people running on 6 hours for 2 weeks did not feel that fog. They felt slightly tired and mostly fine, while performing at the level of someone who had been awake for an entire day. Before we get to what the research actually says to do about this, I want to clear up 3 things you have almost certainly been told about sleep, because at least one of them is quietly making everything you just learned worse. Here's what people who actually protect their sleep do differently. Not standard hygiene advice. 3 specific things. 1. They protect the last 2 hours of their sleep window, not just the total. Most sleep advice focuses on getting to bed earlier, but the high performer move is protecting the tail end of your sleep. If you need to be up at 7, the window must start by 11, not because of a round number, because you need the REM cycles in the back half. An alarm that cuts you off at 6 instead of 7 does not save you 1 hour. It removes a high proportion of your REM sleep for that night. 2. They cool their sleeping environment. For your brain to transition into sleep, your core body temperature needs to drop by roughly 1 degree Celsius. Your bedroom is doing more of that work than you think. A researcher named Kurt Crouchy showed that falling asleep is literally a process of heat redistribution. Your body pushes warmth out to your hands and feet to cool the core. A cool room helps that process. A warm room fights it. Aim for around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, 65 to 68 Fahrenheit. Not because it feels comfortable, because your biology runs the sleep program at that temperature. 3. They treat the last hour before bed as a protocol. A consistent routine means the same inputs, same order, same time, every night. The reason is not relaxation. The reason is that your brain's transition into deep sleep begins before you close your eyes. A consistent wind-down pattern trains the system to start that transition earlier. So by the time your head hits the pillow, the first cycle is already loading. Variable pre-sleep behavior delays that transition and reduces how deep the first cycle goes. Before we finish, 3 beliefs about sleep that are costing you more than you know. These are not opinions. This is what the research actually shows. Myth. You can catch up on sleep at the weekend. Reality. Mood and self-reported energy do recover with a long weekend sleep. But research shows that memory consolidation and cellular repair do not fully restore. The performance loss compounds. Myth. 6 hours is enough if you feel fine on it. Reality. That is exactly what Van Dongen's subjects said. Slightly above normal, mostly fine, while performing at the level of someone who had not slept at all. The ability to feel your own impairment is one of the first things chronic sleep restriction takes from you. Feeling fine is not evidence that you are fine. Myth. Sleep is passive recovery. Reality. Sleep is the most active biological maintenance window your body runs. The glymphatic system clears toxic waste. Memory consolidates. Skills cement. Dopamine receptors reset. Growth hormone releases almost entirely during sleep. None of this happens while you rest on the couch. It requires the full architecture, including the REM sleep in those final cycles. And the question from the start: why did athletes already sleeping 8 hours gain 9% from sleeping more? Because they were not consistently completing the full sleep architecture. They were not reliably getting complete cycles at the back. Once the window was protected consistently, the late cycle REM completed, and the skills practiced all week finally locked in. That is why the people at the top of their fields treat completing the full sleep architecture as non-negotiable. You have seen it now. The sleep architecture most people cut off without realizing it. The impairment you cannot feel. The brain's overnight cleaning system that only runs if you give it the window it needs. Tell me in the comments, what's your alarm time tomorrow? And after seeing this, does it need to move? In the next video, why most habits collapse. The 21-day rule is wrong. The real number is 66. And there is a biological window in the first night after each habit attempt that decides whether the behavior survives. Almost nobody protects it. If you want to stop trying and actually build something that lasts, subscribe. The fix is not what you think.